What's going on, everybody? This is the blockchain backer bringing you the latest cryptocurrency news and analysis. Today, we're going to be taking a broader perspective look at the cryptocurrency market, really look at it over like the last 5 years to see what's been going on with this cycle that we've had for Bitcoin and Ethereum and the altcoin market, to see if we can make some sense out of what has been happening here in regards to the vast majority of the altcoins only doing somewhat of a retrace so far in the cycles that we've seen so far. One of the things I really like to do is go visit the Wayback Machine or archive.org and take a peek at CoinMarketCap to see what the cryptocurrency market looked like at specific places in time. And we could see who used to be the owners of the top 10. And I also like to take a look over here on CoinTrader Pro to compare Bitcoin and the altcoin market to see the time periods in which we've seen big rises happen here in the altcoin market. So I figured we'll do that today to see if we can make some sense as to why so many of the coins in the cryptocurrency market look like this, and that all the excitement that happened back in March, April, and May of last year did not result in any type of new all-time high, and whether or not that even was our alt season, or was it? So we'll do some comparing today from previous cycles. We'll take a peek at the history of the cryptocurrency market, and we'll attempt to make some sense out of what's going on here with Bitcoin. I do want to thank the sponsor of this video, which is Link2. I was hoping that I would be in Austin, Texas right now. As a lot of you know, I've been under the weather. I was hoping I would make it to the Link2 dinner last night, but they've been running a lot of deals this week, and they've been really helping a lot of people out with this one. They've reduced the minimum investments in Ripple and in Link2. Link2 gives the ability to invest in many different companies before they actually end up IPOing, such as Ripple, Link2, Uphold, BitPay, Dapper Labs, Carbon, and many more. And when I partnered up with Link2 and accepted them as a sponsor of my channel, I knew they were going places. They were recently featured over there with an interview with NASDAQ. Ray from Link2 over there was even able to snap himself a photo with Senator Loomis, and I think they do such a phenomenal job that even I own shares of actual Link2 on their platform. When I've invested in my own private equity, I chose to invest in Link2 myself. That's for each person to research and decide for themselves, but I believed in it. And for today only, they did reduce that minimum investment over there on Link2 for Ripple and for Link2 shares. And you can check them out by visiting the link in the description of each of my videos to Link2, Private Investing Made Simple, where you can see if you can get yourself accredited today. Throughout the history of my YouTube channel, I have presented the thesis for my thoughts on where I thought Bitcoin was going, essentially looking for somewhat of a 4.236 extension reach out here for the Bitcoin price chart based on the high of the 2018 bull market. And that in previous super cycles for Bitcoin, we've noticed that there's been these equivalent lengths, that we are actually working on our third major super cycle for Bitcoin. And that if we noticed what had happened for Bitcoin during the 2018 through 2020 bear market, we were still following corrective structures that were incredibly similar from our previous one. And that in our previous cycle, we had risen all the way up, followed by a crash, retrace, reaccumulation, breakout. And then even here for Bitcoin in 2018 through 2020, we had a crash, retrace, reaccumulation, breakout happening in here. And that if we were to follow the full extension for something like that to occur, get you out there into like the $70,000 to $80,000 price level for Bitcoin to repeat a full super cycle in here. And well, what does that mean for the altcoin market, right? We've looked through the history of the altcoin market on when it actually ends up having its big rises. There seem to be very frequent time periods in which it does occur. Some of the most common places for that to occur is after Bitcoin breaks out into its new all-time high. So we could see this is kind of the all-time high breakout level for Bitcoin in here. And what we notice is that there was somewhat of an alt season that occurred during that time period right there. Next, there also appears to be an alt season that happens at the very top of Bitcoin, and in particular back into the retracement levels, and even back here in 2013, while we don't have as many coins on this list, we can see after Bitcoin had topped, the altcoin market all went on a roar there, even though it's far fewer coins. But essentially what we noticed is breaking out of all-time high seemed to trigger some type of an alt season, and the topping of Bitcoin seemed to trigger some type of an alt season. And so what has happened so far this time period, this time around, right? We can go ahead and place the same thing back over here on Bitcoin to see here's our all-time high breakout, and we can see this is where we broke out of all-time high. And what occurred right in there after we broke out into all-time high into this time period? Well, there seemed to be some action that happened over here in the altcoin market. Although not as dramatic as we've seen before, there was some type of action that happened here in the altcoin market after breaking out into an all-time high. And then mixed with that, could it also be a topping at the same period? Hard to tell, because we could see the altcoin market just lackluster ever since that moment. Broke out into all-time high. Nothing happened for the altcoin market after that. And when we look at these altcoins as a whole, we can see in here at the same time, like look back to 2014, 15, 16, and 17. We can see this is kind of where all the altcoins were just kind of hanging out in here, right? What did they do? They all moved up into a new region in here, right? So we all kind of stepped the whole market up in here. So here's the multi-year consolidation that happened in here. And here's where they stepped up into. And we can look over here. We could say, all right, here's the multi-year consolidation that happened in here before Bitcoin broke out into its all-time high. Where's the step up? Really, the only one we have showing here that's like obvious is like Ethereum, but for the most part, all still staying in these same levels, right? No real breakout in here. And I initially showed this at the beginning of the video. This is the Wayback Machine, or archive.org. This is the top 10 cryptocurrencies in December of 2018. So at this point in the market cycle for Bitcoin, we've already gone through the big, massive plunge that has happened in the bear market of 2018. We're now in December 11th. We're down there near $3,000 for Bitcoin. You can see it's 3,400 at this time. We've already kind of washed out all the trash in the cryptocurrency market at this time. And this is what your top 10 in the crypto market looked like as we got down there to the bottom of the bear market in 2018. What do you have? You have Bitcoin, XRP, Ethereum, XRP even above Ethereum at the time. You have Stellar Lumens, you have Bitcoin Cash, EOS at number 7, Bitcoin SV, Litecoin, and Tron. And this is what your top 10 looked like. And if you took a look at these top 10 right now and you said, how many of these have gone on to set new all-time highs? Out of this whole list, there are only 2. You did have Litecoin touch its all-time high and get rejected. However, ones that actually went into their all-time highs, the only ones are Bitcoin and Ethereum. All the other ones have not. If you move on to the next 10, right, so numbers 11 through 20, you've got Cardano, Monero, IOTA, New Economy Movement, Binance Coin, Dash, Ethereum Classic, Neo, Zcash, and Dogecoin. Out of the next 10, only 4 did. You had Cardano, Binance Coin, Ethereum Classic, and Dogecoin. So 4. And when we look at these top 20 in here, and also including Tether, which at the time was only $1.8 billion, these 20 coins represented 97% of the market cap of the cryptocurrency market. This was the bulk of your cryptocurrency market, numbers 1 through 20 representing 97% of the market. And when I put this chart together, I actually used the top 35 to get an even bigger representation of it to show how the broader market has worked together. And we have seen lots of new coins enter this space. Lots of speculative runs happen on new coins that have entered the space, but it's been very interesting to see how that top 20 has really performed throughout this cycle up until this point. And what's also very interesting is how Bitcoin and Ethereum both behaved very normal. In which it's been kind of funny for me as a content creator going through this experience over the last year and a half, because I've essentially been on the opposite side of retail during every major move that we've had in here. When we were up in here back in February, March, April, and May, this is when Elon Musk was coming out and announcing that Tesla had added it to their balance sheet. But at that time, it was at like my exit plan targets. I was selling my Bitcoin. I was laughed at. But then Bitcoin ended up crashing, and we were looking for a 50% crash to come out, because that's what has happened in previous topping structures for Bitcoin in these types of moments, that even in here, there was a 50% crash that happened for Bitcoin before it went on to set its high. And during this time period, it was just admit that it's a bear market. And it was like, no, Bitcoin's going to go on and set a new all-time high, but not by much, right? Everybody was cool with that. But by the time we got up in here and I was screaming, all right, this is it. This is the end for Bitcoin. Suddenly, everybody became believers in the $100,000 Bitcoin price once again. And so it was kind of like I was on the opposite side of sentiment at this time. I was on the opposite side of sentiment at this time. And then, as we know, opposite side of sentiment at this time. And then now it's about like navigating a bear market for Bitcoin, trying to find where can like a retracement come in for Bitcoin to get it some more price action to happen in here. Which, you know, after all this time period, everybody assumes we're going to go down in a straight line. Bear markets are incredibly difficult to navigate. It is not as clear cut or as simple as, you know, picking 4.236 extensions. It's a whole lot more difficult trying to find where bounces can happen at. I went through the bear market of 2018, 19, and 20 trying to find the bottoms over and over again. And it just became a point of I just had to keep accumulating over and over again. And, new bottoms would come in, new lows would come in, and have to keep buying. And then eventually, finally, it was over and we started rising. But finding bottoms is certainly much more difficult. And that's the task I'm put on myself at this point, is where can we start to try to find some type of relief bounce to come out in here, because we've essentially gone to brand new all-time highs to now setting new lower lows for the last year. But of course, when you set that new low, everybody's going to sell the break of that and expect the price to keep going straight down from there. But we can look throughout history to understand that bounces typically happen in Bitcoin. They happen all the time, and it's not usually just some type of a straight line down. And then there becomes this whole question in here of why has the vast majority of the altcoin market not gone on any type of run? And the vast majority of them look just like this, and that the 2021 exciting time period was nothing more than just a retracement happening in here at this point. And have we seen that happen before, where retracements happen and then it consolidates again and then it goes on for even bigger explosions? Yes, we absolutely have. But still, it'd be highly, highly different, because this happened during, the depths of a bear market, right? And this whole time period here is, 3 to 4 years in here. Whereas, this is our 4 years here to just do a retracement. And, I'm willing to accept that, hey, there may be some things that just aren't going to do well. There's some things that are just, lacking production, lacking backing, and, they're just kind of losing interest in there. But when we look through that top 20 of what has happened in here, and we look at the ones that ended up going, you've got Ethereum Classic and you've got Doge, right? Things that have had a lot of work still done on them would be things like Zcash and IOTA and Monero and Litecoin and Stellar Lumens and XRP, all looking that same way, right? It's definitely a head scratcher. You could argue that, hey, what's happening there with all those coins is like what happened for Bitcoin before it went off into a big run up in here. And so what we've seen happen there in February, March, April, and May was somewhat of a retracement happening in here and a revisit of the lows before we go off. And that what we've seen happen in here for Bitcoin has been kind of the completion time period of what an entire bear period for Bitcoin looks like ever since that moment in time actually ended up occurring. In which we know we had capitulation with, and also a stack on top of it, a black swan that was very scary. What happened there with Luna and what happened with Terra USD, in addition, completing what a completed capitulation can look like after enough time has elapsed. And we know that peak on-chain activity happened in here. And yet we still haven't seen any type of retracement come out of Bitcoin here at this point for some type of, 618, 702, or 786 retracement in here yet, which when we saw what happened back in 2017, 2018, when we did have a retracement, that was the time for the altcoin market to run. And so when I go back and I look at this list and I say, there's things in here that behaved very common, like very normal, and that would be Bitcoin and that would be Ethereum. And then we go through the list and we just say, okay, then why is the majority of this not done it, right? You got Ethereum Classic and you got Dogecoin that did, but you look through the whole list and most of them did not. They did this kind of retracement thing happening in here. And it begs the question of, okay, well, are those going to be all the losers, right? And the winners are going to be Bitcoin, Ethereum, Ethereum Classic, and Dogecoin, right? And then everything else is going to be a loser. Or, you say, well, there's going to be some losers, there's going to be some winners. And it's hard for me to really wrap my head around some of it, because I have ones in here that I think are phenomenal, right? I think everybody has their own opinion on what they think is phenomenal. And some of the things that I don't think were phenomenal, I still bought them thinking, it's likely that these will go up, like in particular Bitcoin and Ethereum. I still owned them. I ran them all the way up, but I did sell them. But it wasn't because I thought that they were going to change the world in any way, right? So it's definitely been a head scratcher, and then trying to build kind of a thesis on where is the cryptocurrency market going from here, with the vast majority of these not doing anything. And it's definitely been a very head scratching moment to try to figure that out. And I don't have all the answers for it. I could show you all the things that I'm looking at. Then you stack in also a lot of the macro elements that are happening, right? We've had the stock market moving down. We've had the DXY moving up really high. We've got government bonds up high. You've got inflation high. You have macro elements that are, headwinds at this moment as well, too. And so the picture is really murky right now. And so even if you argued that, hey, this was a completed bear market that has happened for Bitcoin and enough time has elapsed since the peak euphoria has happened, and that we did actually go into a capitulation that just happened right in here, Well, even in this circumstance, if you were going to draw from that and say, well, then we've got to go into consolidation for a long time period in here, which is like a year, or, since we did this directly from an all-time high, do you say, hey, we're just going to head back into a retracement, and this is where we're going to see a lot of the altcoins get their opportunity to run in here? And, when I just use logic and I say, how crypto has worked in the past, how markets have worked in the past, the most logical thing is if we're heading into some like super long downtrend, which I can argue for that Bitcoin in like the completed depths of despair has to come all the way back down into the 2000s. I've presented that case multiple times. This is what Ethereum did in its 2018 bear market. This is what Netflix did. This is common after you have this crash, retrace, reaccumulation, extension, breakout. Is that the next phase? Is that you end up moving all the way back down in here before you then ramp up for another cycle? And then in that circumstance, I would be sitting here being a believer in the $100,000 Bitcoin prices again, or for the first time ever. But the argument could be made that we head all the way down there. But is the reality of it is that you head down in a straight line, or is it that you have some type of retracement? It's very murky right now, and especially with the fact that we had a black swan happen and we have been stuck here for over 30 days now. Let's take a peek of how long we've been right here. We've been here for 31 days, and the market has not given us a definitive answer. It has definitely done what looks like a completed capitulation in here, but what we know is from a percentage standpoint of an actual bear market for Bitcoin, percentage-wise, they typically come down to 85%. In this type of move, this is the area right in here where all of this action came out in here. This is the area right here at about 10K, which is actually more than 85%. No, it's right there. It's right there at about 85%. So there you go. But how often have we seen it where Bitcoin just does this in an absolute straight line down to that area right in there? It's usually going to have some type of bounces that happen along the way if it's going to, and especially since we're coming directly off of the all-time high, and that we haven't seen any action come out of the majority of these altcoins. It's just highly odd. And it begs the question, are these altcoins, gloom and doom? I don't have the answer. If we don't get some type of retracement coming in here to send those altcoins, to send things like XRP or Stellar Lumens or Monero, it would get much more rough out there if we started heading in a straight line down. And what would that actually mean? Like, what would it actually mean if we do go down in a straight line and XRP continues moving down in a straight line from here? I mean, if we start losing all of this stuff, then it just becomes the thesis of XRP, the thesis of what it's going to become. Was it all wrong? So it becomes hard to believe in that Bitcoin would go in a straight line down, because that's probably the type of stuff that would happen over there for XRP in a big, massive move down. So when I look over here at things like the altcoin market cap setup and the Ethereum price chart setup and say, hey, look, this is what we've seen happen before in these longer type of consolidations happening in here, in particular when they happen on top of the all-time high, these things make a lot of logical sense to me. But as we know, we've been stuck here for 30 days, and it's hard to draw any conclusion of, is this an absolutely crashing market happening in here right now? Or is this like the absolute extreme fear moment that has happened 2 times in the history of having this fear and greed index? And both of those times did mark the bottoms coming in here. And that this is now the 3rd time that we've done it. And does this mark the ending? It's a difficult time right now. And it's hard to say, the bottom is in for each individual altcoin, because I just don't think I can, because I've been through moments like this before. And, you see out there people say, these drops can get deep. And it's true that they can get deep. Each move down, these things can be big. This is the most volatile market in the world. You can have a 25 and 50% drop happen all the time. And then it can bounce right back up 80, 90% at the exact same time. So it's hard to be like, yeah, I'm getting out here. I'm going to buy down 35% later in 4 days, and then I'm going to snip it right there at the bottom and then catch the 90% rise back up to the top. I've tried to play that game in here before. It doesn't work. But at the time of where we're at right now for crypto, it's kind of like everybody's kind of having to place their bets on what do they think is going to happen in here, right? Are we going to hold these levels in here? Is this a normal setup for the altcoin market? Is this a normal setup for the cryptocurrency market before it catapults and goes into a much higher run, in which finally that altcoin market does get an opportunity to rise? Or Are we at the brink of like, a complete destructive moment happening here in crypto? Because if all these levels do get taken out in here, I mean, you look through the past, and that's really what TA is trying to look through the past and try to make some logic out of what could happen next based on what we've seen before. I mean, it takes it way down for the altcoin market. And you are looking at 50, 60, 70% drops from where we're at right now. If these supportive levels get broken, and based on what we've seen them do before is how low they do end up going. And having to pick that out right now, I can only make my best guess, and I can only, place my portfolio on my strategy, right? And my strategy is not going to be perfect for everybody because I can hold stuff for a long time. I can go through these big ups and these big downs, and they are painful sometimes and they're rewarding sometimes. And that's how I was able to get 2,000% on Bitcoin. It's how I was able to get 6,000% on Ethereum. It's because I'm not chasing every 15, 20, 50% move that happens along the way. But for a lot of people, that's not the right thing, right? It's more about, preserving, waiting it out, looking for some direction to come in, and then making their move and going after smaller amounts and just kind of playing it a little bit more safe. And I understand that and I respect that's how a lot of people like to do their things. And it makes total logical sense to do it like that. But for me, I'm a holder. I hold things for a very long time to try to catch the big mega cycles of things that have happened. But as we can see in this market, we haven't seen that show up in a lot of different things. And it's still just a waiting game on a lot of stuff. And the bigger question comes of, are we even going to get it right now? And it's a very tough time right now. We haven't gotten a decision over here on Bitcoin at this point, but I wanted to show you all the things that have my head scratching out here, like a lot of people, I'm sure. Bitcoin and Ethereum were very clear cut throughout this cycle. They did things that are very normal, going off to those 4.236 extensions and then having these rejections prior to getting there, taking profits, hitting the extensions. But we just haven't seen the altcoin market follow through with that. And at the same time, Bitcoin hasn't done any type of retracement in here. And the question is it going to give us one or is it not going to give us one? Or are we going into a full-blown crashing market with the stock market right now? If I could say what is going to happen with definitive answers, I would say it, but I don't know. But I do know that Bitcoin and Ethereum were very clear cut. And I got to sell very near the top here for Bitcoin and for Ethereum on the literal top on November 10th. That's how clear cut it was. So we've seen things that have been very clear in this market, but things that have also been not very clear. And I would say for the optimistic standpoint of what my views are and optimism out here is that, we've seen these corrections happen in the total altcoin market cap before, in particular with Ethereum back in 2016 and its 10 to 11 month correction, and for Bitcoin and its mid-cycle correction back in 2017. Both of these corrections for Bitcoin and for Ethereum occurred at their all-time highs. So they broke out into all-time highs, had violent pushbacks, long consolidations that capitulated back down to the lows. Both of these occurred here at their all-time highs as their first major corrections. This is the first major correction for the altcoin market cap here on top of the all-time high, as we can see right in here as we take a look at total 3. And from a corrective standpoint, on top of the all-time high, very optimistic in that if this thing holds and if this structure is true, indicates, hey, awesome times ahead for the altcoin market. But if you start taking it out, if you start breaking down below these things and we start heading way back down in here, boy, it just gets so hard to paint like this super optimistic future for the cryptocurrency market in the short or medium term. So when we go back through the history of the crypto market and how it has behaved before, heading into bigger cycles, heading into good times and big growth happening in the market, there are not circumstances in there where we spend years consolidating, break out into all-time highs, and then just lose it and then just start going and ramping all the way up. We don't have examples of things like that happening. So I wouldn't want to see something like that occurring in there because, boy, just how do you even guess how long it's going to be down there or how long it's going to last for? I wouldn't know. And I'm sure there are people who are watching this and saying, dang it, be clear, man. Which one is it going to be? But I'm trying to show, like, there's so many mixed things. We have lots of things that have happened in this market that have been very clear in regards to Bitcoin and Ethereum hitting their extensions, and neither of them have gone into any type of retracement. And we have seen the altcoin market perform well into retracements, but we've got no evidence of a retracement coming in just yet. So if they go lower, altcoins are probably going to go lower with them before a retracement ends up occurring. And we have a lot of macro elements that are impacting us right now. But we can look at like setups that are happening here for like Ethereum and for the altcoin market in relation to setups that we've seen on top of all-time highs before. And we've seen these setups happen in here before. We've seen them occur where they can pull back down into and then lead on to a big run. And right now, those things haven't broken down. But if they did break down, boy, it would be a pretty dark picture for the cryptocurrency market moving forward beyond that. So, as we sit here waiting on Bitcoin now for over a month since we've had all of the Luna and Terra and capitulation and the Black Swan and USDT still being unpegged to $1 now for over a month, and we're sitting down here on these supports waiting for an answer to happen and an answer to show up. I want to show you all the things that I see throughout the market. And it's definitely a head scratcher for me at this point on why so many of these good altcoins have not done anything in this market, and whether or not we're getting mixed things that, maybe this altcoin market's going to go much higher. But at the same time, if we lose all these supports, is it painting a completely different picture? And right now, where we're at right now in this market, it's so hard for me to draw a definitive picture on which one is happening, as these lows are all still holding down in here from a month ago. And as Bitcoin is still sitting in here for the last month, still at average pricing. If we took the average pricing of where it's been in right in here, Bitcoin's still sitting above 50% height of this actual range that it's been in here this whole time. So just want to, shake it and say, come on, do something. Because I know we're all sick of it. We're all sick of waiting in here. At least I'm sick of waiting in here. It's like, hey, altcoin market, give us something that we've seen before. Give us a way out of here to start talking about something optimistic coming, and that maybe we are finally going to see that run happen over there in the altcoin market. Or even if it's got a break, at least give us some definitive sign. But as long as we just sit right here for the altcoin market and for Bitcoin, just sitting right in here, it's just fingernail biting. It's just what comes next? Have we seen crash, retrace, reaccumulations happen on the bulk of these assets, the bulk of these cryptocurrencies over the last 5 years that are about to lead onto some big push in these markets, like what we saw happen for Bitcoin back in 2018, 19, and 20? Or are they breaking down? And we just don't have that answer yet. And hopefully that answer can come relatively soon. But until then, I wanted to show you all the things that are going through my mind, the confusions I have as well out there right now. I am such a believer in XRP, and I'm such a believer in privacy coins in the cryptocurrency market, and that if we're going to do transactions, that they're going to be private. And even Litecoin, I've become even a bigger believer in Litecoin now that they've implemented Mimblewimble to give you the opportunity to be able to make your transactions private with Litecoin. And so I see all these things that make me excited about these coins, but it's like, why haven't they gone yet? And it's like, okay, is there a macro element of the market missing? And we're just kind of having to wait right now to say, give us an answer, market. Are we going off into a Great Depression over there in the stock market that's going to pull the cryptocurrency market down with it? Or are we finishing up a correction that's going to catapult this thing much higher? And as we sit here and wait and wait and wait, that's just going to be what I have to do, is I have to wait. And so long as Bitcoin is still residing within this 3-year parallel channel that it's been residing with, and as XRP is same thing on top of a channel that it has been in since early 2020, while still holding this massive weekly resistance level that's been support and resistance throughout the last 5 years, still sitting on top of it and still sitting on top of the trend. And while the altcoin market is still setting up a similar structure, including Ethereum, to what we have seen happen in previous corrections for Bitcoin and Ethereum throughout history, I can sit there and be optimistic about it that, we're in extreme fear at the same places that we always get into extreme fear at. But it's still just a waiting game to see any type of sign of strength come out of these, because we just haven't seen it yet. And like I made in a video last week, kind of the line in the sand on that, if all those things started breaking, I would start getting really worried. But we're still sitting on top of them right now, still fingernail biting. And hopefully the picture can become more clear as things start to play out. But right now, we still are just waiting, which has also been the story of the altcoins for the last 5 years. And hopefully their moment to shine is coming soon. So wanted to take this video to kind of show all the things that I see throughout the market, all the head scratching stuff. I don't have all the answers to everything out there, but I think it's always good to kind of look back throughout history and see what has really happened in this market so far up until this point, and kind of see where we're at. Whether you can draw any conclusions from it or not, to each their own. I think it's good to at least look at all of it. So as we head into the weekend, I'll go ahead and wrap this thing up. As you guys know, earlier this week, I told you guys how I've been under the weather for several weeks. I actually today feel way better. I did go see a doctor this week. Hopefully I'm improving. I feel like I am. So I'll continue to rest throughout the weekend, unless we get some type of big major break or something like that happens, and I'll come in and check in with you guys. But otherwise, I want to wish you guys a wonderful weekend. Hopefully we get some great news come out of Consensus 2022. I really wish I was there. I'm very jealous of the people who got to go. I hope anybody there has a wonderful time. And I really hope that we get some really good news come out of that thing, because we could certainly use it. Otherwise, thank you to the sponsor of the channel, Link2. Again, they've dropped their minimum investment requirements for Ripple and for Link2 for today. There's an affiliate link in the description of each of my videos to link to, where you can invest in companies prior to them going public and have a piece of the private equity pie before they hit the public markets. Otherwise, thank you so much for watching my channel. If you could, please like this video and give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you could be notified of when I create new content and when I go live. As always, this is not investment advice, and I am not a financial advisor. But if you ever need a pick-me-up or a little bit of reassurance, just remember that the blockchain backers got your back. Have a good one.